Hi, good evening, Stephen. Yeah, extremely difficult. Yeah, it's taken a lot of deliberation with a lot of stakeholders over the last couple of months, and given the current situation with the virus and the pandemic, and the possibility of a certain third wave in the coming months, and that's based on best practice around the world and evidence-based medicine, as well as what's actually happening in real time around Europe, etc., where they're a little bit further ahead of us. We kind of get a glimpse into the future, and putting on a mass participation event like this in such a current difficult time is just really not worth it. At the end of the day, our athlete participants, our staff, all our stakeholders, and the community as a whole is by far the health of them and the safety of them is paramount.
I mean,
Yeah, essentially that was the main reasoning as to why we decided to cancel this year.
the problem really is that it's a mass event, right? I mean, I'm never in danger of being one of the people in the crush at the finish, but you still have the crush at the start, and running a marathon means you have lots of people, spectators as well. It's actually impossible not to make this a mass event. It is what it is.
100%. It's having a mass participation running event and the term socially distance in the same sentence is an oxymoron indeed. So trying to separate those is quite clear, and we absolutely can't go against the grain of being safe and practicing best health standards and protocols. And exactly that, putting 27,000 athletes as you say, in a crush, starting in pens that are 5 to 1,000 people full is certainly just far too risky to start the race.
Were you under pressure? I mean, the sponsors would have wanted to know what was going to happen. I realize that, sponsorships now for events like this is a very difficult situation. I would imagine that you've got runners who want to know if they need to train or not. I understand people do train ahead of these things. You would have had all sorts of arrangements to make. In a way, you had to make a decision relatively early.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the rationale behind the early decision is firstly our runners, they put a lot of time and effort into preparing for this race. Often the Two Oceans Marathon is the pinnacle of your non-professional athletes year, and we need to be fair to them in terms of their training and letting them know early that the race is not going to go ahead and that they can adjust their goals as necessary. And then the same applies to sponsors and stakeholders, etc., and teams who are needed to be on the ground in the build up and on the day itself. Letting them know early rather than sort of a month before when a lot of processes and wheels are in process is far an easier bitter pill to swallow for everybody, which it is a very bitter pill because it really is a sad situation in terms of where we are, and the fact of having to cancel the race for a second year is depressing, quite depressing for all. But yes, for the benefit of everybody, rather letting everybody know early rather than later is certainly more beneficial.
I mean, I understand road running and jogging can actually be more addictive than some forms of tea if you take it seriously. Not that, again, I'm in danger of being addicted to either of those things. There is also the situation around the road racing calendar. Let me explain what I mean. So for years, we've had a football season that runs in a particular way, and last year the PSL eventually used a bio bubble and was able to do it. We had the Rugby Currie Cup final, which has been so disrupted that a game which is played in winter was disrupted by lightning because it's the middle of summer on the Highveld. That's what happened in the Currie Cup final. Are we likely to see a big disruption, a permanent disruption? I mean, once the pandemic is hopefully over next year, are we likely to see a big change to the actual annual date of the big road races, including the Two Oceans Marathon? Could that be on the cards? Because it is a chance to reimagine the calendar.
Very much so, and I think as the COVID pandemic has probably blanketed around the world, as everybody's had to rethink strategies for everything, including from business to schooling to putting on sports events. So certainly is probably worth looking at, and it's almost it's a reboot, reset button, and potential problems or possible problems that have been in the past can be ironed out, and essentially a better program or a smoother or more aerodynamic program can be designed. But given the fact that the South African running calendar is so full, time is always tight, and trying to squeeze in races, in between weekends, etc., is always difficult, and often there's double or triple headers on weekends, which is again a reason why we didn't postpone, rather than we rather cancelled, because towards the latter half of the year, the running schedule gets really full, and again, we're not going to know what's going on with the COVID situation, but trying to squeeze in a mass participation event like this is going to be pretty much impossible. And we'd rather just not venture down that road. And yes, hopefully in time, once the vaccine regimens have rolled out, and we hopefully have enough of the population covered, we're praying and crossing fingers that in 2022 we can resume and take over the Easter weekend as it normally does.
Someone's going to propose that you have it twice next year to make up. Dr. Adrian Rotunno, thanks very much indeed, the Chief Medical Officer of the 2 Oathens Marathon.